To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Sabal?
Here.
Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Bahrain?
Here. Going to do a little housekeeping first. I want to move item D, call to the public, to after the report and comments and deliberations by the board, and after the comments of the superintendent. Therefore, the public will be informed as to what's going on, and then their comments can be more in tune with what the superintendent has to say about the state of everything going on, and also after the deliberations of the board, and then the board will have fresh in their mind what the public happened to say. Also, want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Short notice, but under the circumstances, and I don't need to get into all the details, but I think it's of utmost importance that the community be informed, especially on a daily basis, as to what the district has been doing in light of the virus issue, and exactly what the position of the board will or won't be after this morning's meeting. But it's important to note that because of policy, the superintendent, vested in her is the ability to make certain decisions by various policies that have been adopted by the board. So in the absence of a public meeting or any action that needs to be taken officially by the board, the superintendent is empowered to do those kinds of things according to the policies. And I have them listed here, and then we'll enter them into the record. And of course, it'll become more they'll become more valuable as to what she can or can't do after the discussion and deliberation by the board. I need to do some legal things here as far as the emergency, calling of the emergency meeting is concerned. And Alma, I know you're familiar with the emergency, of course, is because of the virus issue, and the immediacy of this board and the district needing to direct its attention to what we may or may not do. Lastly, I think everybody knows that everybody in this room is conscious, and our most important endeavors here are to look out for the welfare of our students, but also the welfare of our staff. We want to be extremely open to the public, want the public to know what we're doing. Douglas is much different logistically from a lot of districts that are contemplating closing or have already closed. Some of the districts in the metropolitan areas have closed for obvious reasons, because of their exposure to so many different variables that we don't have here. However, having said that, that doesn't preclude something happening here, and we want to be extremely aware and sensitive to everything that's going on, especially the feelings and sentiments of the public, especially the parents. All right. So having said that, you know that under the statute, what you have to do as a result after the meeting. One last quick comment. We did not advertise any specificity as to what the board could make a decision on, and that was because we don't know where the conversation is going to go. However, the board does have the authority and is empowered by the statute that in an emergency situation, we can actually vote on an item not on the agenda, as long as we follow the ensuing obligation that we have. So having said that, let me open up the meeting with the main purpose of being here, and that is to get a report from Mrs. Samaniego regarding their activities with all of the state agencies that are involved, and what she's garnered from those conversations and what she has to report to the board here today. And then we will deliberate as a board, then we'll open it up to comments. All right. Thank you, Ms.
Okay. Well, it is good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board, and members of our community and staff. First of all, I understand the concern that is out there via parents, via students, and our staff, and the concern that is all over the state right now, which is a reason why, in speaking to Ms. Bahrain, we decided to have this meeting so that we're all informed. First of all, I want to assure that I personally have been in constant communication with all state agencies. As a matter of fact, on Thursday, I was on a conference call along with other state or district leaders with Governor Ducey, State Superintendent Hoffman, Director of the State Department of Health, and other leaders. And this conference call was specifically related to this item. And after they presented some information or gave us some information, there was opportunity for us to ask questions via the conference call. And so obviously many districts had the same question, should we close our schools? Which is the dilemma right now. And after the conference call was over at the end, again, they reassured us that at this time, none of the state agencies are recommending any school closures because there is, at that point, there were only 2 cases of the virus being in Arizona, none of which were a serious matter or it was under control. So they felt that at the moment, Arizona was not in a serious situation where it would be a community spread. However, they did say that information is constantly changing day to day. So I've been receiving day-to-day updates, sometimes 20 updates on a given day, and the information still being as of this morning is they're not recommending that schools close if there is no concern, a viable concern. Now here in Cochise County, there are no known cases, and I've been also in contact with Cochise County Superintendent's Office and the Department of Health for Cochise County, and they are still giving us the same recommendation as not to close down our schools. Now, what we are being advised is obviously to take some, strict precautions within our schools and our school districts, which is what we did prior to leaving for spring break and when this situation started at our schools. Over spring break, we had our custodial staff thoroughly clean and sanitize our schools because there were no students there. And as that, it was a concern, and Mr. Nunez, I think, visited some of the schools over the break just to make sure that that was being done in preparation for kids returning. We also have, under the information here from the state agencies, it says, to the extent possible, schools are encouraged to continue instruction during periods of school closure due to an influenza pandemic or similar public health emergency, which some of the districts, and Mr. Barain is right, there are, as of last night, there's 20 districts up in the valley that closed either indefinitely or for an extended, like a 2-week period. Most of the information that is being circulated is that if a school were to close, they recommend a 14-day initial school closure, which will allow for that 14-day period to try to control anybody that is showing signs of being sick. Now, under the information that is being shared out there, some of the symptoms that we are watching, or everybody should be watching, are fever of 100 or higher, coughing, and any, what was it called? Respiratory situations. And what they're telling us is, and what we shared with our staff, if any of our staff or students are showing, or even have come into school with a fever, that they be isolated, parents contacted and asked to be picked up so that they can seek medical help. That same thing for our staff, and the information coming down from the state health department is if a child has, or a staff member has a fever, they should stay home for 24 hours prior to returning and take over-the-counter medication if that. They are also encouraging us to, people to stay home to avoid, big situations where there's a large crowd of people. We know here in Arizona, the state universities have already either extended their spring break. Some of them have gone via I think most of them have gone through the online process. And so they've taken a very serious steps into dealing with this, obviously for very different reasons, that they have students of multiple ethnicities that may have traveled outside of Arizona or the U.S. Then what they're telling us also is that all decisions about implementing school-based strategies, dismissals, event cancellations, social distancing measures should be made locally in collaboration with local health officials who can help determine the level of transmission in the community. The governor, state superintendent, and Department of Health are still, even though governor issued a declaration for state of emergency, I believe, and the reason for that was so that we could get, the state could get additional funding. And we know that President Trump also declared a national state of emergency to get additional funding for different resources and different avenues. At this point, we do plan on opening our schools on Monday, but knowing that there is a concern of our parents and our staff, we wanted to have this meeting and have an opportunity for the board to ask any questions of what I have been informed. We do know that obviously school closure causes other concerns, such as, children being fed. And so I've looked into potential, if in the event that we need to do that, we'll work with our food services department to create a plan. Closing after the 100th day does not impact funding. We know that. I was just given some information this morning from our attorney, because when you close a school, it does impact our employees as well. And so the question becomes, can we pay our employees while they're not at work? Or do they have to take their own personal leave in order to stay home? And just today, this morning, the House has passed bolstering unemployment insurance, paid sick leave for 14 days by the employer at not less than 2/3 of regular pay rate if they are sick or have to leave to care for a sick family member or have to stay home with a child because of a closed school or daycare facility. The House also says that expanded FMLA to include 2/3 of pay for 12 weeks out of FMLA, available for a year, for people affected by the coronavirus, paid by the employer, and increased WIC by $500 million without the work requirement, also for infants and elderly. Our attorney says didn't see anything about the feds reimbursing the employer at this time, other than private businesses can get 100% tax credit, but did not see anything to reimburse school districts if we need to close for a long period of time. Obviously, the districts in Phoenix, as of last night, like I said, there was 20 districts, and probably more will be closing in the days to come. I know a few of my colleagues are having board meetings as well today up in the Phoenix area. I haven't seen too much on the Tucson school districts closing. I think they're pretty much staying open. And let me see. So one of the points of order here that we've been receiving is the order of authority for school closures goes as follows. Number one, the governor gives directions to state of emergency or declare state of emergency. Then the health department gives direction to counties and school districts to close in order to mitigate potential damage of an outbreak. Or the second order would be the county health department gives direction to some or all of the schools to close. 3 would be the charter operators may choose to close one or more of its charter schools under ARS 15-183. And last is the school district or can, may, or choose to close one or more of its schools under ARS 15-806B. And so that's the order for school closures. I don't know if you have any questions at this point.
First of all, for clarification, that information that we saw this morning, I meant to ask you, that's a House bill that was passed?
Yes, and she did not specify which House bill, but this is coming via our attorney, Kenny Pardee.
What's the number on it?
She didn't say.
Well, if she says it's a House bill, it's a House bill.
Yes, it was just on the news this morning.
So, but that still has to go through the legislative
Yes.
process. And I think you were very specific that there are other issues that the district does need to address, and that would be the fulfillment of the contract obligations and all of those things. In the scheme of everything, though, those problems are going to be the legislatures and the Department of
Yes.
Education. So I think that what we need to address our attention to is those things will work themselves out. The employees, of course, need to be paid. And that's not only the certified, which are contractual, but also the classified. And then what would happen to them and all of their financial obligations, that's a major consideration as well. But again, the legislature is going to have to address that, and they're going to have to change some laws.
And our concern, Mr. Bahrain, here obviously is the welfare, the safety of our students and of our staff. And so I have been receiving some phone calls and some emails from some parents asking us to close down the school. You know, they're concerned for their children's safety. So we are very aware, and ultimately our responsibility is to keep our children and our staff safe. And again, taking all the information gathered from state agencies, our county health department, there is still not a concern here, especially in Cochise County. And what they're saying is actually closing a school can cause more problems on the end, because what happens when kids are not in school, obviously then they may be staying elsewhere with family and friends, or exposing themselves to people that are sick, and then bringing that back when schools reopen. So they are still advising us not to close down, but to be really vigilant and monitor the situation day-to-day basis. I know our concern, being a border town community, is the fact that over spring break we had many of our students go to San Carlos, Rocky Point, Mexico, across the border, and being out of the country is a concern for many of our parents. And we understand that, and are very aware of their concerns too. As you know, I'm also a parent of a child here, and know that keeping our students safe, and especially our staff, who we have some staff that is a little bit older, and we are also concerned for them.
Okay, let's open it up to discussion by the board, and then if, as a result of the discussion, if we have any what we might consider some direction to the superintendent, or by way of motion or by direction, then we can do that. But then also want to give the public ample opportunity to express themselves, because after all, they're the ones that are going to be directly affected, not only because of their children, but because of their own personal welfare and that of their obligations. So, members of the board, based on the report or anything that you feel is pertinent here regarding any decision we might come to later in the meeting, if we do come to one, we'll open it up for comments. Mr. Ramos.
Yeah, I just want to mention, as being said by Superintendent Samaniego, our main concern is our students and our staff. We have already mentioned that, and the thing is that we're depending on what information we're getting federally, state, and county-wise. They're telling us not to shut down a school at this time. But I know you as a parent, me as a grandparent, we feel scared, we feel unsure of the situation, but we must actually act with the best integrity that the school can provide to do the right decision, to close it at the time when it's needed to be closed, and not do it before. The closure of a school is going to have a great financial impact on the entire staff, as it's going to have impacts in other areas of the city too. And so we have to be very, very vigilant in deciding when to close. The main thing we want is the safety of your children. That's our number one priority. But a school can be closed. If we see it necessary, we can do it as soon as we and give out the order from you, Ms. Ana Samaniego. You can give us the directive and say we need to close it, and then the board can get together and make a decision.
Mr. Bahrain,
Yes.
I think that Ms. Samaniego did a yeoman's job in looking to all the possibilities, and I congratulate her for being so concerned as we all are. The only thing I'm concerned about is that nobody has said anything about the influx
of Mexican nationals attending our school. Unfortunately, not even the president said anything about Mexico. They say that they're reporting, but they're not reporting honestly. So therefore, that's the only concern I have. I don't know whether they're examining or testing for fever as they cross into the United States. That's my only concern. But I think Mrs. Samaniego did a yeoman's job, outstanding, for the concern of our children and our staff and the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm thinking that the most prudent action would be to follow the superintendent's recommendation and not close the schools at this time. If circumstances changes, then we'll know about that. But I do want to say that the first line of defense seems to me to be the parents to say if your child or student is exhibiting any of these fevers or symptoms, thank you, then they should be the ones to keep them home and keep them away from everybody until things, but it goes back to the parents' responsibility. I think that would be the first line of defense.
Dr. Gomez.
Just one question, Mr. Soto. When you draw up your budget and you're paid, isn't that money already allocated even from the state?
Mr. Gomez, I guess I don't understand the question. The state is just giving us the budget for the school year, basically. And I know we have in our calendar at least 1 or 2 days in case for snow days.
No.
But I don't know what.
Okay,
No,
no.
I think he wants to know about, do you have the money, or
pay.
we rely on disbursements?
In other words, the state hasn't said because of the coronavirus, we're not going to give you money.
Not yet.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so for that reason, what I'm saying is that staff is going to get paid because we're going to be getting that money.
Yes. Yes.
Okay?
And
In other words, it's not a shortfall of money as yet.
as yet, correct.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I could ask Mr. Soto one more question
Go
in
ahead.
regards to that. What about, we get paid on the attendance of every 100 days, I believe? How does that work?
Not anymore. If you remember, now we're on
Correct.
current year funding. So every month the state runs a report, and then according to the attendance, that's what they
Yeah, but it's
submit the
still
money.
according to the attendance.
Correct.
Have they mentioned anything, if we lose attendance, are we still going to be, they're going to be taken off of the amount that's going to be paid?
I have some information here, Mr. Ramos, and it says funding during school closures. Schools are required to provide 180 days of instruction or equivalent in minutes per year. The superintendent of public instruction may consider prolonged school closure due to a pandemic as constituting 100% absenteeism and therefore result in no disruption in funding. But that would have to come from, ADE or
You know what
the state.
Mr. Beren said, it's going
Yes.
to have to be legislated.
Yes, legislative. uh-huh.
Okay, so my other question is, and this is from a medical standpoint. You are all here, all the people here, concerned about your children. But, number one, how many of your children have received the flu vaccine? How many of you have received the flu vaccine? Number two, what kind of precautions do you use at home? Do you wash your hands often? Do you make sure that your children wash their hands often? If they have a runny nose, do you make sure that you take care of that and make sure that they don't touch their face? So a lot of it at the precautionary level is up to you. Mrs. Amaniego has already said what we are going to be doing in the schools. I think I'm going to steal this when she's not looking.
There's none to buy.
So anyway, and the thing of it is that there's none of this in Douglas, I don't think. So the point is that you have to use some type of antibacterial soap when you wash your hands, when you wash your children's hands, and when you, like the little boy over there, when you change the diaper, you've got to make sure that you're awfully clean, and all of those things. So a lot depends on you as parents. Do not send your child to school if he's got a runny nose or if he's coughing. Staff, don't go to school if you've got a fever and you're coughing. A lot of it depends on us, how we approach this, virus. I don't think, from what I hear in the national news, it's going to be a while yet before we have a vaccine, but they have made it very obvious that a lot of it depends on how we approach the precautions. That's all.
I think that we need to clear up, because there's been 3 questions regarding the funding, and let's make sure that we're absolutely clear on that aspect, because we don't want that to become an issue, because the most important issue has been stated here over and over, is the welfare of everybody. So let's talk again about the funding. Now, Ms. Samaniego read a minute ago 15-806. That is the statutory provision to be able to shut down for these type of instances. And then I can tell you from another life that when these things happen, that the state will not withhold your funding, because they will provide measures for you to be able to make those adjustments in the reporting. So we don't have to worry about that. The legislature's involved. They're already addressing, and I think that was a House bill, and it hadn't gone to the Senate, so it hadn't even been signed by the governor. So that's just a proposed. It already passed the House, so it's going to go to the Senate. But the important thing here is we need to stay focused that the funding will be forthcoming, that the employees will be paid, and I think that the legislature and the State Department will provide for all those things. The important thing is, what instruction are we going to give today to the superintendent about what not only the philosophy of the board, but also the philosophy of the community? So at this time, how many, yes?
I just want to make one more comment.
Yes, and while he's getting ready to do that, give me the people that want to address the board, please. Go ahead.
Okay, the other thing is, something that was very disturbing to me that I heard is that if we close the schools, then a lot of children are not going to be fed. They're not going to get their one meal.
Or two
Or
meals.
two, or whatever it is, yes. And this person was telling me that a lot of children say, I don't like the weekend because then I won't eat. So we have a lot of children that need those meals during the week. Number one. Number two, we don't have, even if it was the high school was supposed to close, we don't have the virtual learning that is probably, they have the ability in the school districts in Phoenix. We are not going to be teaching. The kids are not going to be learning. I could go into a possibility, but I won't anyway. So but that's the gist. That if we close, there's going to be a lot of things happening to the children.
Okay, and then one last thing, just to tailgate on what he said, and I'm sure you're thoroughly aware of it, both of you, that the State Board of Education and the requirements for graduation have to be met as well. So that would be a major concern as to what would happen with high school students, especially the seniors, and their ability to get the required credits. But again, that's something else that would have to be handled at the State Board of Education level, which they have done before. All right, with that, we're going to open it up for comments from the public, and we welcome them. And we're going to start off with David Morales Jr. All right.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay? Thank you. It's actually Daniel, but that's fine. That's close enough. Good afternoon to everyone here, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Daniel Morales, 757 3rd Street, Douglas, Arizona. So thank you so much for calling this emergency board meeting. It speaks to the severity and the seriousness that you're handling this situation. Just so that you know, I'm actually teleworking right now. I'm on my lunch break from the United States military as we speak. And the reason is because I was sent home yesterday as a result of this outbreak. So school districts throughout California just closed their doors. Several hundreds or tens of districts in California, our neighboring state, just closed as of yesterday. New Mexico, which is only 60 miles away from here, to our east, has school closures statewide for 3 weeks, effective this Monday. And as I mentioned, I just got sent home yesterday for my drill weekend. The Defense Department just ordered that all domestic travel has been stopped as of today, or as of yesterday, excuse me. And the President, as you know, has just announced a national state of emergency and a national day of prayer for tomorrow. So to go point by point with some of the precautionary measures that have been mentioned and some of the considerations that have already been discussed, cleaning rooms that students were already in before spring break is not an effective measure. If it was present before, then they were already exposed to it. So follow that line of thinking respectfully. This does nothing to neutralize viruses being introduced after spring break. Number two, wiping down surfaces, although good, does nothing for an airborne virus known to persist for up to 30 minutes or even up to 3 hours, as has been discovered. Many of our parents and students will not self-report symptoms because it's not in their best interest in many cases to do so. Even if they would, those infected with coronavirus are known to be asymptomatic for weeks and contagious for up to a month. Bureaucrats in Phoenix, respectfully, 4 hours from the border, do not know what's best for us here on the border. Many students will be returning from Mexico, as has been discussed. They will not be screened at our port of entry for coronavirus. I hope DUSD acts in a manner that is aligned to our unique situation as an international border community. If they can institute a clear backpack policy on their own, in other words, without having to abide by anything from outside of our district, then certainly they can institute a spring break extension policy on their own. This is the best time to do so. God forbid we have outbreaks amongst our older staff, those who are at risk, and all the grandparents who pick up many of our students. I hope DUSD reconsiders for their sake and for the sake of our entire community. I also respectfully request at this board meeting that you consider non-penalties for those who do decide to keep their students home, or students who themselves decide, because they're immunocompromised or whatever, decide to stay home. If I could just go through a thought exercise, it's been reiterated, and I appreciate it, that you are considering the welfare of our students first and foremost, and your staff. However, this virus is actually more lethal to our older population. In other words, our whole community. So I ask you respectfully to keep that in mind. Any kind of exposure that is brought to our school offices and ultimately brought to your desks right in front of you, your papers right in front of you, presents a risk to you, especially if you're over 60 years old. Now just carry that thought exercise to all of the rest of our community. Our school district is actually at the forefront. So I ask you to please reconsider this measure, this decision, for the benefit of our entire community. Because if you're just going by what other people say outside the school district, you've already acted unilaterally in the past. And if you're just relying on the fact that there's no cases in Cochise County, that is not a good rationale, because we have no way of knowing exactly how extensive this virus is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Generally, the official way to do this is to have somebody fill out a form to speak, but the chair will allow anybody else that wants to at this time. Just is there anybody else that wants to speak on behalf of this? Come on up here. We just want you to identify yourself, your name and your address, and then go ahead and address the board.
Yvette Cruz, 1414 Alegre Place here in Douglas. So my question is, I respect whatever decision is made by the school district, but in terms of mitigating the risk, as the gentleman prior to this asked, I mean, what steps are being taken at the schools on a individual level? There are kids who traveled out of state. I know of kids who've traveled back east to Texas, to places where there have been known cases. So who's to say that they don't bring the virus back and it's not shown to them or to the other people that have been exposed for another, a number of days? So what steps are the schools taking to mitigate the risks, such as temperature checks, extra hand sanitizer if it's available? Alcohol station, alcohol with aloe vera is basically hand sanitizer, extra wash stations, because we all know kids don't wash their hands frequently or as frequently as they should. So as a parent who has kids who I'm making sure that they're washing their hands, trying not to touch their face as much as possible. But once they leave our supervision, we don't have any control of that. So what is a school plan, I guess, that's going to be put in place to make sure that these kids are following these rules and abiding by them?
Okay, I'll attempt to answer that question. And obviously, we know that many of our families and children did travel, and I would say it's almost impossible to find out where they traveled to and, were you in an area of high risk. But legally, per statutes, we cannot keep anyone that's been even out of Douglas or went to Agua Prieta or went to New York out of school. Okay, we legally can't do that. However, we will be monitoring, and you have a very good point. Our nurses, and I'm going to be having a meeting with, if we continue with our plan to open on Monday, I'm going to have a meeting with all my admin team and our head nurse department, because I think we need to sit down and make sure that we are monitoring temperatures if anybody is showing signs of a cold, a simple cold. All of our schools have the health aides, and then we have several health nurses that are being shared between schools. Even before break, we took some precautionary measures as to if any kids were if showed any sign, were asked to stay home. We are sanitizing, and I know that will not cure this virus or will not prevent anybody from showing signs of it, but we cannot make any guarantees. And identifying somebody that may potentially have the virus and coming into our schools, whether it be an adult or a child, is almost impossible. I just got off the phone with our Department of Health Director for Cochise County, and she continued to advise have regular checks by their nursing staff if a staff member is showing any type of illness or is already either pregnant, has diabetes, is going through chemo. Those are your high-risk individuals, and we do know that this virus is potentially not really. Kids are safer. There's not many cases out there that kids have been affected. And we have provided, or all of our principals have, I think, stocked up on orders of, try to at least order sanitizer. I know a lot of parents will donate Kleenexes. So they are trying to get as many products from our warehouse as possible. I haven't heard from any one of them that said, I've ordered and they're all out, because this is a fact of life right now. If you go buy toilet paper, you may not find some. If you go buy Lysol, you might not find some. But I haven't heard directly from any of our school principals that they have been told your items cannot be sent to you because we ran out. So we are taking those measures to provide what we can at the schools, and making sure that kids are not hugging, kids and adults, shaking hands, hugging, that Kleenex is readily available or toilet paper, and that constantly advising that they don't, rub their nose or when they have some mucus coming down, to try to teach those kids. Recently, I think over the last few days, I've been sending any information I'm receiving as even information that our educators can do in the classrooms coming on Monday, as far as teaching about coronavirus, what they can and cannot do, how they can be affected, because children are also probably in panic, and some children more so than others. So that's what I can tell you we will attempt to do, and as every principal is going to be vigilant, and classroom teachers, I just I'm working on some communication to them, that normally our custodians are the ones who clean our classrooms, but right now it's going to be a responsibility for everybody, from the teacher to the principal to the custodian. And we know that hand sanitizers are hard to find, but if you have any and you want to donate to your child's classroom, you can do that. Don't know if I answered.
One last question. So as in like head lice check that nurses regularly do throughout the school year, would it be possible to do like a temperature check, maybe a daily quick temperature check on each student, just to see, make sure that they're within the range of being under that threshold?
I'm sure we can work something
Just to
out.
help mitigate some of that
I'll have to
risk.
sit down with Yolanda Caruso, who's head nurse, and she'll be part of this meeting. Dr. Ed?
That goes back to what I was just telling you. The precautions that you take at home. You're saying checking temperatures.
Yes.
Check your children's temperatures. Check your temperature.
Yes. And that is very important.
And that's what you do. If they have a fever, don't send them to school. So here again, use your head and your responsibility for your child's safety.
Yes, sir. And I do that for my children.
But,
I don't send them to school if they have a fever. But unfortunately, not every parent does that, and that's where that risk lies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And a point was just brought up regarding the inventory. How is the warehouse supplied with those kinds of
It
things?
should be good. I haven't heard from the warehouse per se that they're low in stock, but that's something that I'm going to check Monday morning
Yeah.
to make sure that they
Cesar,
have.
But you can look into it to make sure you don't get really without anything,
Right.
And the health department for Cochise County also has shared information that if districts in the county are running low on supplies, that they will also assist us.
Is there anybody else from the public that wants to, please step up there and identify yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Hector Ramirez, 146 West Linda Vista Lane here in Douglas. I have a couple questions. I know the gentleman, the lady, she addressed them, but in a way, I have a question about. I was a little late to the meeting, so I don't know if you guys are going to resume classes on Monday, or that's the
We
idea.
haven't decided
Okay.
yet. So go ahead.
My point is that for this virus, there's an incubation period. Sometimes, according to the CDC, I guess, it takes about, 11 days, something like that. So, in my point of view, I think it would be a good idea at least to extend spring break for a week or 2 weeks to wait for those kids that went out of town. I saw through social media, a lot of the kids were up in Disneyland, Universal Studios, San Diego, etc. It doesn't mean they're going to come back sick, but at least give them some time so that virus, either it's going to manifest or not, to be on the safe side. And I'm speaking for everybody. We also, like Dr. Ed said, we follow everything that is established. CDC, wash your hands, follow, all the rules, hygiene rules. I'm not going to slam Agua Prieta or nothing like that. But what about the floating population that comes through? We're not Phoenix or Tucson. We're Douglas. It's a community. It's a border town. We can be compliant, but it doesn't mean people in Mexico are going to be compliant. We watch the news every day, and there's a lot of cases popping up in the U.S. It's weird that Mexico doesn't have them. It doesn't mean that Mexico's not doing their job, but what I'm saying is maybe they don't pay attention to the things that we're doing. Maybe if the kids or somebody has temperature, they don't take into consideration. I say, okay, yeah, it's just a common cold, and it's not going to happen anything. It just as a precaution, we're in the border, so we have to take a little extra measures. I'm a civil employee for U.S. Customs, and I can see the mess that is going through the port and all the logistics, everything that is going on at the port of entry. And we're dealing with a lot of things. And I know that eventually Hopefully not. You know, I'm a religious person, and I pray to God that nothing happens. But you know, we can be exposed to that. So just, you know, it's just as a matter of precaution, you know, I would like for you guys to consider, see if extend at least a couple weeks that spring break, just to see if that, you know, the kids are coming back, families are coming back, just to give them some time. Give them some time to either they can see, okay, I'm well enough to go back to school, or if something, you know, the virus manifests himself, give them some time so they can get better. And like I said, you know, there's a lot of floating population that comes back and forth from the border. We can be compliant, but we cannot help Mexico be compliant. We follow the rules. It doesn't mean they're going to follow the rules. Thanks.
Appreciate your comments very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, and especially your point of, your focal point on from where you stand, your perspective on it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
We had somebody else out there that wanted to speak. Let's take Donna.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having this
Donnie, go- yeah,
emergency meetings. And he pretty much said everything I was about to say. I have a 6-year-old, and she's in Stevenson Elementary, and I have the same concerns. I don't have to repeat, because exactly what he just said is how I feel about kids coming back from vacations, and this being an airborne virus. We can do so much to clean and stuff, but because we don't know where kids traveled and where they went, I think that given the time for the kids to come back and home and give that period of time to see if they were going to get sick and stuff like that. I'm uncomfortable sending my daughter to school. Still haven't decided, but I know that there's, you know, like I said, like she's not going to get the education, you know, if she doesn't go to school and stuff like that. I'm usually very rational about decisions, but this is a little scary. And we all have to be careful. I've told my parents not to go to church anymore. They're in their 70s. I'm worried for them. We just have to be more careful. I take all that stuff that you guys said in consideration, but I think right now it's safety first for the kids and for the older, elderly people too. So I hope that you guys do take in consideration that it's spring break, and probably the worst time for kids to have to travel, but it's like the kids went on spring break and then everything started closing. And it was just too late to stop people from going anywhere. I had a concert to take my daughter to. She looked for months, and that's been canceled. It was going to be tomorrow. So, you know, everybody's taking precautions. I think we should too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need to know that that although all of the contacts and communications that the administration is making with the state are of utmost importance, those
Yes.
people are the ones that have all the data and the
Right.
statistics of what's going on. And of course, they make the decisions up there, and Mrs. Samaniego read the line of authority of those that can close the schools. But you also need to know that the local governing boards have more authority than anybody else. And we represent the people, and we're elected and stewards of the community and the school district, the 5 of us. And so we can make any decision we want, and I want you to know that. I don't want anybody to walk out of here and say that they hid behind the state, and they did, because as far as I'm concerned, that's the reason I called the meeting this morning, because I wanted to hear from you people. And we're not going to do that. So we're going to make decisions based on what's the best interest of this community and not necessarily of the state. All of the data and the analysis and everything she did with state, that's wonderful. That's great. That helps us. But when that final decision comes, we're going to make it here, whether the board wants to or not. We'll do something here this morning. Either we'll say we're going to extend the spring break, we're going to shut the schools down indefinitely, or we're not going to do anything.
Okay.
All right? And so just so that you know, and also I believe Mr. Ramirez back there, and also Mr. Morales, and want you to know that that decision lies with this board, all right?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, there was somebody else in the back there that wanted to speak.
Mr.
Our own
Ortega.
angel.
He wants to know, can we send kids to play ball?
Well, good afternoon. I just want to provide some information regarding
Athletics,
student
yes.
athletics. That was something that hasn't been touched on yet, but just kind of giving you an update on the AIA, which is Arizona Interscholastic Association. and their procedures as they move forward. They're going to be meeting on Monday during their executive board meeting. At that point, they're going to decide how they're going to move forward with the rest of the spring sports season. And it does affect our student athletes. That is rather large population at the high school. As an athletic department at the high school, we're going to follow whichever decision our district administration makes and or the AIA, because it could be either way. They're looking at possibilities of postponing seasons, or like you see in professional or collegiate athletics, completely canceling them. So that decision will be made on Monday. I just want to make sure it was put on the record so that way the public is aware of that as well, and the parents. But again, we're going with the decisions of our district administrator and or the AIA. So that's as far as where we at. Or that's as where we at right now. But we're proceeding as normal until a decision is made.
That's important information, and
Yes.
that's good to know. Sure, absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, the Bulldogs of baseball, because I know that. They had a game, I think it was Friday or Thursday,
It was Wednesday.
and it was canceled?
Actually, yesterday was canceled due to field conditions.
Okay, so it
We've been
wasn't-
experiencing
it wasn't
rain.
because of that.
No.
Okay, that's what I was.
But as you know, there is school districts that are closing around the Phoenix area and Tucson area,
Yes.
so it does affect our games as well in that aspect. But yeah, yesterday's game was canceled due to weather and field conditions. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I do have a comment that, and I didn't address athletics specifically because I was going to address it with Mr. Ortega so that he could communicate to the coaches. The information that I have also received is they are not, recommending at this point that the athletic events are canceled or even out-of-town field trips, because that was a question that came from many of the school districts on the conference call with the governor and state superintendent. What they did say is that our athletic directors and our coaches we need to make sure that they're not taking any precautions against kids who are not able to go to practice because they're sick, they're definitely recommending no child that has even a cold travel on to an away game. They just don't travel, are not allowed to be on the bus, and they did say not even taken by their parents. But, one of the districts had a concern over maybe, coaches being upset at the kids for not going to practice or not showing up to a game. But at this point, they're saying there should be no repercussions on behalf of the athletic coaches. And so that's the information that I had as
Right,
of now.
and just to add on that, AIA isn't punishing any schools that are canceling games because of that
Yeah.
reason, that same reason. They're waiving any kind of fines for cancellations at this point until they make their decision on Monday, how they're going to move forward with this. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Angel. I think we had somebody else in the back there, way in the back. Come on, just come on. I see somebody has their hand up back there.
Little guy, sorry. Eddie Cruz, 1305 5th Street. Just a couple things real quick. It was touch base with that young man over there. Have you guys been in touch with DHS and how they're processing people coming through the border? Are they taking temperatures? Are they requesting people like, can you go off to the side a little bit, or can you park your car here so we can check you out real quick before we process you through? We do have a percentage of students that live in Mexico. So I just wanted to know if that's happening. The other thing is too is that when you make your decision on keeping school going or extending the spring break, make it a very thorough of the facts that you do have. I have friends in the medical field across the board, and they're annoyed of the panic right now. Super annoyed of the panic. Precautions are the same precautions you take for pink eye. And then we also have students that have pre-existing conditions. How are you going to establish that? Do we want them possibly being exposed to what we don't know is out there in the community yet? Because we don't know if it's out there in our community. And honestly, I'm not concerned at this point. I do agree with you, or was it Mr. Lindemann, about if we are going to close the school down, we need to be strategic about it. What days do we close it down? Do we start now or do we start later? Because you only have a certain amount of days. I believe it's 180 days that the school district has per year. It does have to be strategic. It does have to be well thought out, and it does have to be in the best interest of the students. And also consult with DHS because we have a influx of students coming in. Some teachers had a great vacation this spring break. I saw the pictures. It looked lovely. But yeah, and then the nursing staff. I have a few friends on there. And the question is for that, do they have the proper thermometers at this point to take the temperatures? Will they be able to get assistance from the parent liaison or the secretary to help? Because there are going to be some days you have 5 kids that get sent to school with a fever. And first thing off the bat, they're taking temperatures and doing their thing and having to send kids home. A lot of it does fall on the parents. 100% agree. But this is also a teachable moment in personal hygiene, which not only just be taken care of at home, but taken care of at the education system. Elementary school teachers can stamp the tops of kids' hands. And if the stamp's gone, they've obviously washed their hands throughout the day and they can be rewarded. You know? Food service, they come in contact with every single kid. Do they going to have hand sanitizer at the beginning of the station before kids start serving their meals, getting their meals? And those are just a couple things I wanted to touch base on, and so on and so forth. That's it. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you. In and out. Anybody else? I think it's come to that time, members of the board, let's open it up for discussion again. And I think that we have some options on the table based on all the information, not only all of the professional information from all of the politicians and the political subdivisions of the state and the federal government, but also, you have to wait for a minute, also from hearing from our constituents here. So I think the option is, number one, we do nothing. Number two, that we close indefinitely. And number three, that we extend the spring break for all the reasons that were given, not only by members of the public, but also by staff. And I think that it was very, very well expressed here, and I think it was highlighted that we are a very unique community. Anybody that's ever lived here and for any period of time, Douglas is very unique in everything. And not only in the demographics and the logistics and all those things, but when you look at the community itself, we share, we have a dual community here with Mexico. And we do have that flow that was so well expressed by Mr. Ramirez back there. So I personally, based on everything heard and from what I know, from what I've also seen and been exposed to by ways of all the communications that I get still, I'd be inclined to entertain a motion to extend, for all the reasons that were given, to extend the spring break for 2 weeks and let all of these things surface. If there's going to be anything, let our staff get together, let the administration get together with staff, do some type of strategic planning, inform the parents, and there's going to be some major adjustments by some of the parents. But I think in the best interest of the community right now, based on everything, we know that we exercise our local prerogative and that we extend the spring break for 2 weeks, which would be 2 weeks from Monday. I don't have a calendar. What day would that be?
Are you saying 2 additional weeks?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So that would,
20-some?
the 27th around there?
Yeah.
No, we would return on the 30th if that was
The 30th? Let me
30th
just
is a
make sure.
Monday.
So potentially we would return Monday. It wouldn't be until Monday, the 30th.
Well, that would give all the ramifications that were discussed here today, all those things that deal with HR, with the business aspect of the district, and with just the general administration of the district, would give you people ample time to do whatever you think you need to do and get thoroughly prepared on the return of not only the students but the staff. The other thing that's going to be very, very important and is going to be a salient consideration is what the legislature is going to do, but I can see they're on their way to doing it, and I don't think there's any way the staff or the governor wouldn't sign it, the Senate or the governor wouldn't sign that if it gets through the Senate. That I think that those accommodations will be forthcoming, and I don't think that'll be an issue in the future. And I think it also addresses the welfare of our staff, not only the students. So what would you think of that, a motion to that effect?
I'm okay with that. Me personally, I had spoken to Mr. Bahrain as board president. I had been in contact throughout the weekend, and I had said maybe extending it a week, I would feel very comfortable with that. And so 2 weeks, as a parent and hearing all of our parents and staff, we are a very unique border community, and like Mr. Burring said, the decision lies here, no matter how much information we gathered. So I'd be okay with that. The only, I want Mrs. Cox, I'm going to put her on the spot, to testing, yes. And so, because as soon as we said 2 weeks, I started hearing the mumbling, which is a concern. And parents, your child's safety is the utmost importance, but I just want to hear your thoughts, Mrs. Cox, over our testing. You all know that AZ Merit is right around the corner, and actually that starts April 1st,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
March 30th. Okay.
So, good afternoon. So, yes, testing. But I'm sure because of what's happening right now in the state, I'm sure they're going to extend that window, especially because so many school closures in Phoenix. So, I'm sure they'll extend the window. We have about until April 24th to test for AZ Merit, so we'll be okay. Our AIM Science window was going to be on starting April 23rd. March 23rd, but we have time for that. And I'll tell you, on a side note, as the wife of a husband who has immune deficiencies right now, I'm terrified about what's happening. Not for myself, but because if I catch something, I can bring it home to him. So thank you. 2 weeks kind of makes me nervous, but I thank you for that.
Well, let's entertain a conversation regarding 1 week. What would the significance be? Let's talk about preparation. Let's talk about testing, and giving the legislature and the state agencies an opportunity to let them unfold, see what they're going to come up with. Do you think a week would be enough time for those things? This bill is going to move very quickly through the legislature. I'm almost positive that. But and that would take care of the issue with the payment, the sick leave, and all of those things that we have to be concerned about with the employees, right? Mr. Nunez.
I have to be in agreement with the superintendent and say that perhaps we, like many districts in the Phoenix area, possibly extending it 1 week and then reevaluating the situation, and then making a decision to maybe continue to extend it or not. I think just making it up front for the 2 weeks, I think this allows us an opportunity to look at testing, to look at some curriculum resources, look at our leave, what's in motion right now with regard to pay, et cetera. And it gives us the gift of time, I guess, for lack of a better word, by 1 week.
Okay, and then for those of you that were interested enough to be here today, and we really appreciate that, would 1 week be a little bit of a leaving to you if we did it for 1 week rather than two because of all of the things that were just mentioned? No, but would anybody have any objection to that? Yeah, Dr. Gomez.
I belong to an organization that said that we should cancel everything, all events, all meetings, and everything like that. And that was going to be on a week-to-week basis. I think if we were to extend the spring break 1 week, and then there's going to be a lot of information coming in that 1 week, and then we can meet again on an emergency basis.
Right. Okay,
A
that's
week from today.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then we can
Mr. President.
go over it again.
Mr. President, I just want to remind everybody, even though we give them 1 week extension or 2 weeks extension, after they come back, when the kids come back, that doesn't mean because we gave them that week that they're going to be free of the virus. It's just giving us time to look at where the district has to do and how we're going to handle it on down the line. Just want to let everybody know, this is not a remedy, a prevention of them getting sick. This is just something that we're helping find a solution as to the best way we can handle a situation.
Thank you. Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you, Mr. President. What comes to my mind is that if there's an extension of the week, I wouldn't say two, but what's to prevent people from traveling again? And then you got a perpetuating problem. And so I'm really, I got mixed feelings about that. We don't have a problem right now. Everybody says that, not to panic needlessly and to just move forth unless circumstances change. And so I'm just wondering, why are we panicking extra? 1 week, they would be able to travel again. I did want to ask the gentleman why, if he was sent home, he's here infecting all of us. But but anyway, be that as it may, I don't want to panic unnecessarily. And everybody that Ms. Samaniego was saying from the state on down said, you don't need to jump the gun.
With all due respect, I don't think we're panicking. I think we're exercising due diligence based on the information that we have. And, it's cliched, but better safe than sorry. And I think that given everything that was said here today, I think it would be in the best interest of the community, too, because we have to also consider the sentiment of the community and their confidence in what this board is doing. And I think that our confidence today should be to them that we are going to consider everything, especially what you have to say, those things that are of interest to you.
Angel, I think Angel.
And I also want to comment that Dr. Ed said we can get reconvened. We certainly can do that. And I'll be in constant contact. However, always be aware that, and I've pointed the policies out to the secretary, who in turn has given them to the super, and their district policies, which empower the superintendent to have some far-reaching authority in these kinds of cases. And she can make on a daily basis any decision she needs to. And then for the public's information, she's in constant contact. They're here daily. We're not, and so she's empowered to do it. And I don't want to overemphasize that. Angel, did you have something else that you want to say?
Yeah. So regardless of whether it's a decision of 1 week or 2 week or continue as normal, we need to clarify how we're going to handle our extracurricular activities and travel and home events and things like that.
Well, I will say, based on the information of any district that has temporarily closed, most of them have done a 2-week period. Some have gone indefinitely. That includes all athletic events are canceled.
Yes, and I would feel more comfortable if the athletic events were included.
And again, that is just what other districts are doing. Doesn't mean that, we would have to do the same thing. However, what direction would you like us to go there? The other thing, before the decision is made, I'd like Mr. Pineda, our food service director, if he's still here, because my plan for a school closure would be to have all of our schools be able to serve breakfast and lunch for any kid that would need a meal. And so I want to make sure, we'd obviously wouldn't need all the staff, but that would be a possibility because we do have food. Yes.
And the kids that haven't got the means to come to school by being brought to school, would there be something that they could be picked up or something like that?
We could talk about it on, I'd need at least a day to coordinate that. My transportation supervisor is out of town on vacation, not in Rocky Point, but in Phoenix. So.
Our principals and everybody would know what kids would be.
And this would be available to any child or family that would need to send their kids for a meal, breakfast and lunch. That's what I would
Before you get
recommend.
started, Mr. Pineda, while I got you, and Mr. Soto, how are we doing on the awning at our BMS?
It's very expensive.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I got that out of you first.
Yes, we actually
We're
have
moving
that
along
quote
with
and
that?
we're moving forward.
Okay, good.
Affected by the
All right,
coronavirus,
go.
so we're not going to get it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. So I think it's very important what Mrs. Amaniego just mentioned. Our kids are benefiting from our free lunches, and I think it's very crucial for them to have at least that first and second meal, counting a snack as well. So I think it's a great opportunity to just keep our program open. I think we're in a great standpoint. I've been in contact with our vendors, and they're telling me that they have currently a good stock amount to supply us, and just in case if something big happens. So I think we're in a good standpoint if we continue to do that. In regards to reimbursing meals, I don't know how the Arizona Department of Education is going to advise us to do it, but I think as a food service director, I see the importance of the kids getting fed. So I think that's something that we can definitely look forward to do.
And what we could do, and I can certainly meet with you right after this meeting and have a plan for Monday, and I would put that communication out there as far as times. But what school districts are doing is, for example, they're opening up at, let's say, 9 a.m., 9 to 10 for breakfast, and then maybe 11 to 12 for lunch. And all of the schools, at least all the districts that I've been researching, some of them have the opportunity at every school, and some have designated certain schools or certain community facilities or whatever. But I think we could probably provide
I think
it at
we
every
can.
school.
What they're basically doing, they're starting our summer school program early. That's what it seems that they're doing. So maybe we can accommodate something to our district needs, and maybe we can do something like that.
Okay, and then again, I had previously mentioned it, but I just want to mention it one more time as far as graduation is concerned.
Yes.
Is this going to have any type of a drastic effect on how that's going to affect?
Maybe it will, Mr. Bahrain, and this is, AD has the pandemic preparedness guidance report, and so it says if a school, again, needs to close because of the pandemic or similar public health emergency, following the 100th day of instruction, there is no impact on funding. However, Arizona law requires that LEAs provide at least 180 days of instruction or equivalent number of minutes, regardless of any proposed school closures, based on ARS 15-3401. LEAs should make every effort possible to make up days and instructional hours lost due to the pandemic or similar public health agency, including extending the school year or increasing instructional time on presently scheduled days. Information is subject to change depending on the severity of the pandemic. The Department of Education will continue to work with the Attorney General's office to determine the requirements for making up lost instructional time. So thinking ahead, I worked with our new student supervisor, Mene Gomez, and Douglas High School. This how it would affect Douglas High School has 11.5 weeks over the required instructional time as of Friday before spring break. Middle schools, 6-8, are over 41 school days or 292 hours over the required instructional time. 4th and 5th grade are over 34 school days or 222 hours over instructional time. And K-3 are over 61 days, school days, or 400 hours over required instructional time. So given if we close down for a week, I think we would be fine. If we close down longer, obviously then we'll have to reassess, and maybe on some days, okay, well, we're going to cancel the early release days, for example, and we're going to have to stay full day. That could be an option. We're going to extend school till 4 p.m. That would be an option.
Those
Or
are things
extend.
that you're
Yes.
administratively going to look at
Yes, we're
next
going to
week.
look at or extend beyond the May 23rd graduation day, end of school date. That's another possibility. But obviously, if the seriousness of this just gets more severe, it's, the Department of Ed is going to reconsider and give us more information as we go. But as of Friday, this is we have to make up the time. But with these numbers, we're good. Yes.
Just in addition, what I just said, I think it's important to consider our meals because of the kids being fed once again. But the whole thing of extending our fall break is to reduce congregations. So by us doing this, we're still going to have kids coming to us to get our meal. So I think we need to reconsider the fact how we're going to serve our kids. So maybe being mobile or something.
It would be more of a sack lunch, Mr. Pineda, so that kids can come and pick up a meal, yeah, and then they can take it home.
Those are the details you're
yeah.
going to work out next week.
Yeah, but once again, we're still going to have kids coming to us, and a big congregation is going to get together. So
I will
just-
guarantee you, it's not going to be many kids. We've done this in the past. I think during the Red for Ed movement, and I don't think you were here yet.
No.
We hadn't hired you yet, but it was very, very few kids. But I do want to have that as an option to our parents.
And I just want to give that possibility of being mobile. Maybe we can accommodate our band so we can distribute meals towards specific points in the city. That could be, we can increase participation and be better.
We'll sit down and.
Thank you.
and-
You know, I don't want to get off this high school yet because we want to make sure that we have covered every base so that we don't get to the end of the year where we have a problem with graduation. And you keep mentioning ADE, and of course you have to remember that just as we are scurrying around here today trying to find solutions and make decisions, they are as well at the state level. And remember that anything that ADE does, they're going to have to go before the State Board of Education and get approval on that, especially that
Yes.
kind of thing. So we're not in it alone, but we're going to have to entrust to them that they will do their job and we'll do ours, and we'll see what happens here again this morning. Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, Zeke Gonzalez, 2700 13th Street. I had a couple of questions, and one of them has already been answered on whether the school year would be extended if we extended spring break. The other question I had, and maybe the board can answer it, and I don't know if everybody in the room here knows, how many cases are there in Arizona, confirmed cases of this coronavirus?
Confirmed 2. And that was, well, I will say, as of Wednesday, when I had the conference call, the Department of Health Director said 2. That was as of Wednesday.
Right.
Somebody in the back that I think is probably accurate says 3, so.
12?
Oh, 12.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zeke. All right, members of the board.
Excuse me, Mr. Bering.
Yes.
This young lady's been wanting to say
Oh,
something.
we didn't see you. Come
You know,
on up.
she's sitting behind that gentleman there, and she's hard to see, so.
I think that extending the spring break by a week.
Your name and
Oh,
address,
sorry,
please. That's,
sorry.
no, that's okay. That's for the record. That's to have it on tape.
Kendra Wilkinson, 1265 East 11th Street. I'm a senior in Douglas High School, and I think extending spring break by a week is a great idea because as of right now, there's kind of a lot of misinformation about the virus, and it's not very clear on where to get tested, especially in this area. So I think that extending the spring break by a week would allow the period for the symptoms to start showing, as well as perhaps getting more tests or testing areas in the Cochise area. Because as of right now, it's kind of hard to find out where to get tested. And I think that would also allow perhaps more funding to maybe supply students at school with face masks or latex gloves or more hand sanitizer, and maybe getting more equipment that the nurses would need to check temperatures coming into school. That's all I wanted to say.
But thank you very much.
If I may just try to answer her question. My conversation this morning with the Department of Cochise County, the director, she did say that they are too working on establishing some local labs for those people. They're not recommending that we all go get tested. Okay, they're definitely not recommending that. But if you are showing the signs as instructed and you hear on television, on reports, then those are the individuals that would, per your doctor, sent for testing. And they are working on establishing and getting some more labs. And she did mention LabCorp, which is, LabCorp works with many of the clinics locally. So they too are working on exactly what you're saying. But they're not recommending you just go get tested because you're in panic. Do I have it or do I not?
Mr. Gray. Okay, Dr. Gomez.
Okay, after hearing everything, the concerns of the parents and the concerns of the board and everything, I would like to make a motion that we extend the spring break 1 week. Subject
Second the
to,
motion.
Go ahead.
subject to the amount of information coming in. Therefore, I also say in the motion that if we have to, that we have another emergency meeting next Saturday.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Sabal. Any discussion, members of the board?
No.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Perrin?
Yes. Anything else, Ms. Samaniego?
No, what I will do is send this communication out. We'll post it on all of our websites. Our administrators do need to show up to work. We will be meeting Monday morning at 9 o'clock and to try to work out some of these details.
So you.
Teachers
you-
are not, teachers, IAs are not to show up to work. Okay, only my administrative staff, directors,
Excuse me a minute. What about classified?
classified staff. We're closing down. Nobody is allowed to come
Right,
to
I
work.
just want to make sure that's
Mhm.
clear, that everybody understands.
Custodial
that.
staff?
Somebody in the back had a question.
Oh, God.
What about custodial staff?
It's
You
going
need
to
them?
have to include everybody.
Yes, Mr. Moraine. My name is Gabriel Rivera, 845 16th Street. Is there any way we could change the name from Spring Break to something else? That way the kids will not go back to Spring Break to Rocky Point. I mean,
It's not going to happen, Gabriel.
I mean, if we could at least spread the word to the kids, saying don't go like, yeah, don't go. I think this, like, to go out to, like, the staff, like, don't go, try to stay in Douglas,
I have a good name.
So if
Stay
we
home
could,
break.
yeah, we could think of something, because, spring break is gonna, like, let's go party,
You know, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. That's like trying to change
Yeah.
March Madness.
So we could do it like, I don't know, that's just me, like.
No, I know. Your intentions are good. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I just think that we should keep our staff, here. No, this ain't no, let's go out and to somewhere else. Try to keep it all here. That way, they don't bring more viruses in. I don't know.
Thank you very much.
All right.
We appreciate that. All right, do we need any clarity on?
What I'm going to do, Mr. Eberrain, well, the motion is a week, right? And if we need to reconsider based on information coming down, then we can meet, or as you said, I can make the decision to extend. I will say that for clarification for our staff, any 12-month employee, including bus drivers and custodial staff, and maintenance in all of our regular departments will show up to work because we have more sanitizing and more things to do. This will just affect our IAs, our teachers, our counselors, our nurses that work directly with the kids because there's not going to be any kids and secretarial
You're going to follow
staff.
very closely what's
Yes.
happening at the state level regarding the funding, of course. We're not concerned about the funding, but we are, but in this case, we're not, because we know what's forthcoming. But the legislature and what they're going to be doing as far as absence days and pay and those kinds of things, that would be sick leave, how it'll affect sick leave. So let's clarify that now. So anybody that's on sick leave now is going to
Well, they're going to be
get a
paid
pass.
for
Yeah, they're going to get a pass, right?
for the week.
All right, so
Yeah,
you
Mr.
need to
Brain.
know that as far as HR.
That brings to mind also the hourly workers. Now, are they going to be out of that, out of their pay for a week?
They're going to be out. Now, however, I think that one of the things that I saw in one of the communications I had was that that at the federal level, there was going to be some people that were out because of this were going to continue to get paid. Those are the things that, Mr. Soto, you need to look into, and you need to find out those things along with Mr. Nunez, because it is HR related. So,
Well, it says here, Mr. Burring, this is, again, this House bill that
Right.
Candy just shared this morning, but paid sick leave for 14 days, paid by the employers, if they are sick or have to leave to care for a sick family member, or have to stay home with a child, or have to stay home because of a school closed.
So then they would be covered.
They would be covered. They would,
May I
our
also-
our
and
hourly.
they didn't distinguish between
No.
full-time
No.
or hourly wage.
Whoever,
so-
whoever is staying home would be covered and would be compensated. May I make my recommendation that we, like, I know you mentioned Saturday, but perhaps Friday instead, because it still allows more time for us to share with the community and with everyone else.
If we need to.
That's fine. I think Dr. Gomez just wanted to make sure it was a week, if I'm not mistaken, and then Ms. Samaniego can get in touch with me, and then if we decide we need another meeting. In the meantime, she can make those independent decisions, and then if she needs ratification of anything that she's concerned about, maybe whether it's within her purview or not, then she can call me, we can call a board meeting. All right? So we have a motion on the floor that's already been passed, correct? All right?
I just got one more
Go
comment.
ahead, Doctor.
And this is for Mr. Ortega. You're going to get some direction from the AIA Monday, but I think that as far as athletics is concerned, since they played during the break, I'm not going to call it spring break, I'm going to call it the break, that you go ahead and do that. That would be my suggestion.
To continue with
To continue
athletics?
with the athletics, unless something comes from the AIA that says no.
Well, I think that's understood anyway administratively, that we didn't say anything about shutting down athletics. Right.
Well-
Yeah, so
We'll go on AIA's cue on that one, because if they decide, then any AIA school is not, there's not going to be any competition.
Right.
How do you feel, Mr. Ortega? Because I would,
when I asked earlier, about 30 minutes ago, I believe it's clarified that if we were
to close.
that
For a
would
week.
that would stop our extracurricular activities, including athletics.
Yeah, but see,
but-
the thing of it was is when we did close for the week, you kept playing, or you
That-
would have played.
No, but
That was
but
because
we
it was
weren't-
our
But we
spring
weren't
break.
closed. We weren't officially, that was just spring break.
Well, neither, we aren't closed now, we're just extending the break.
No, it's a school closure extending the spring break. It's an emergency school closure extension of the spring break.
Well, basically, though, what we need to ask is there anything scheduled next week?
Yeah, we have all sports scheduled next week as normal.
Well, let me ask you then.
In and out of town, I bet.
Yeah, let me ask you.
I would
what
say no.
What would your recommendation be?
Yeah.
You know that basically what the
Yeah.
board did was to ensure that there wasn't all of this constant contact, right? That's basically what we're doing, all these gatherings in the buildings or wherever. It didn't address specifically the athletics. How do you feel, based on what you know about the AIA regarding continuing of those scheduled events?
Well, my opinion would be, we need to understand the purpose of our closure. If we're doing this for the safety of our students, how can we consciously send our athletes into the same situation or welcome those to our facilities as well if they're closed? But again, like I mentioned this afternoon when I first spoke, we're going to go off of whatever the recommendation is of the board and our district administration. Just hearing, statements from ADs at the college level, or presidents at the university level, just hearing them saying, how can we close our schools, yet send our students to an NCAA basketball tournament? So again, that's just what I feel. But again, we'll go with whatever the recommendation is of our governing board and our administrators.
But what about the AIA and sanctions? If say you're scheduled to play Mountain View next week and they're not shut down,
Right.
and then we don't show, what will that do
So-
as far as sanctions are concerned?
So AIA is not
Sanction.
penalizing any schools that are closing for that reason. There's
That
no,
would be, that would be my recommendation.
typically
that we
there's
cancel.
a fee, like a fine, if you cancel without any kind of notice for whatever reason. But because of this situation, they're waiving those fees until Monday, deciding what they're going to do to move forward. So that's that.
I agree with that. I like that idea. But the word closure, I don't like that idea. I don't like that word. In other words, what we are doing is we are just extending a period where the students don't go to
come back.
school. Right. You know, it's not like closing. You know, so I think using the word closure is not.
Well, I think your motion was very clear. You said extending.
Extending.
And so I don't, closure just happened to just extemporaneously pop into the conversation.
Okay.
So, but we're on an extension of the break
Yes.
period.
Okay.
And then you need to work with the administration. You know what the direction of the board was, and whatever you decide with her and your communication with the AIA, you go with them. We need to always consider that we're bound by a lot of their rules and regulations as well if we want to be a participating member, right?
Right. So regardless of the decision that's made, we may very well be postponed or canceled regardless due to their decision on Monday.
Yes.
But we need to have some kind of clarification before that point, because we do have teams that are leaving on Monday, and we need to make sure we give them the right message.
Well, my recommendation would be that we postpone for another week all athletic events.
Okay.
Okay, so just include that administratively, you just heard it from the superintendent, that's the way it is. And if it's okay with Dr. Gomez, because he's the one who was concerned about the semantics,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, thanks. I'm glad you brought that up for clarification. Is there anything else we need to clarify? Anything else, members of the board? No. Entertain a motion to adjourn by Mr. Ramos.
Second.
By Mr. Lindeman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned. I want to thank everybody for being here, really, taking your time to come out on a Saturday, and actually helping the board in making this decision. Thank you.